Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros.
Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show Action Edition, where we feature feedback from you, our listeners. And I'm here with my old buddy Larry. Larry, what's been going on?
Well, as always, I've been busy doing the handyman thing. I was doing some. I actually had to put a door in the other day, and so I put the trim up, and of course, I had a little bit of gap, right? Had to get the old caulk gun out, and we received an email actually from John. And John, did you send me an email? Anyway, John sent us an email, and he said, I'm getting a gap. It's like 3/8 to a half an inch thick, and I really don't want to I really don't have to do too much work to get this fixed. Is there a quick workaround that you can do? And so I know you had just done a job. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I was working on an older home the other day, and the cabinets were not actually touching the top of the ceiling. They used to. You can tell, but ceiling things had moved around. They actually put an addition on this house, so that might have had some things to do with it. So most of the cabinets were pretty tight where you could just get up there and caulk it. Just put a nice bead of caulk on there. Wipe it down with the wet finger and be done with it. But some of the gaps were pretty wide, not quite a half inch, but they were getting there. So the best thing to do for that, okay, and if you think about it, you would be shooting in a whole tube of caulk, and it would just be ugly. And I mean, it was.
You got a problem with that, John?
Yeah, it'd be a real mess. Yeah, do your best, caulk the rest. And
this episode brought to you by Johnny's Caulk. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, boy, if you could sell that stuff with these big gaps, But so what you use in that case is something called a backer rod, and all it is a piece of it. It's like a piece of rope that's foam, and everybody will recognize what this foam is if you bought like computer parts, like disk drives and things like that. They come packed with this stuff, and it's that dark black. Grayish, blackish type of foam. It's a closed cell type foam. And that's the best thing I can describe it as. But it's comes in various diameters. And it's real easy to use. You just put it up in the gap, and you just cut it off with a knife or a pair of scissors. You just push it back in the gap a little bit and you're good to go. And a lot of times this stuff is used for insulation or between gaps in concrete and things like that. So, once you see this stuff, you'll say, oh yeah, I've seen this a whole bunch of times. But a lot of times it's used for that kind of a situation where there's a big gap that you can caulk.
Right, and they call it backer rod because, to your point earlier, if you just tried to squeeze caulk in there, caulk needs something to push up against.
That's right, exactly.
So, AKA backer rod, right? So it's behind it,
right?
And you just squeeze it in and treat it just like normal. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And it actually worked out fantastic. I mean, it just you just push it up in there, caulk over it. And like you said, now you've got a back for the caulk. And, I just wiped it down like I normally do with a wet finger. And then just kind of wiped off the excess caulk on wherever it might have been with just a wet rag. Man, it came out like $1 million. It looked great.
So are there any alternatives to doing this?
In terms of caulking larger gaps?
Yes.
I generally don't,
Could you take all the trim down and redo the trim?
Yeah, certainly that would be if you really wanted to do it, the problem when I was looking at it was that even if I took the trim down and redid all of it, which would have been a major project. Okay. And like I said, most of it was pretty secured up against the ceiling. So if you walked into this gentleman's, kitchen, you wouldn't even notice what I did in there actually, but you could have taken off all the trim and it would have been a real mess. But like I said, the problem was that it was like the ceiling was not flat either. So even if you did that, you still couldn't close some of these gaps.
Yeah. So basically, the point is you could do it that way, but let's not take a simple job and make it very difficult, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. don't open that can of worms you really didn't expect any worms to crawl out of.
Right.
Because now you're into paint and all that sort of thing too. So anyway, all right. John, anything else?
No, that's it. That's it. It's a great little tip that if you folks ever get yourself in that kind of situation, try some backer rod.
Well, all right. Well, don't forget to join our Facebook group at Handyman Pros and join in on our conversations. So you can send us an email at questions@handymanprosradioshow.com, or you can go to our homepage at handymanprosradioshow.com and leave us a voice message. So click up on the upper right thing. There's this thing there that says leave us a voice message, and we'll try to get you out on the air. We want to thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this podcast and have derived some value from it, here's 4 things you can do. 1, tell your friends about this podcast. 2, hit subscribe on your podcast player. While you're there, leave us a review. 3, subscribe to our newsletter by going to handymanprosradioshow.com and click on the subscribe button. We'll inform you of upcoming events, shows, and give you actionable tips for maintaining your home and property. And 4, send us an email with your questions to questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. That's handymanprosradioshow.com. That's our show for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.